After the other time, after we talked, I read your article and I read your story, and I was like amazed because it was too deep. So now what I would like for you to share with us today is like, because I believe you were in the darkest place that even me, I have realized now, because we all have our own different struggles. People are struggling with a lot of stuff. So even your story was a different one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So today on this show, I would like you to share for us like how you were able to get out of the of that darkest moment, and even like how you cope up with that stuff up to now.
Yeah. Okay. So a little background and briefing, like what happened was, at the age of 25, I was food poisoned. I ate something that I, accidentally that, gave me like food poisoning, and the effects of which were, I couldn't swallow things. I went in, my pupils were dilated, and then I was admitted to the ER, and I lost my consciousness. And I woke up like 2 days later, and when I got back out of the hospital, like I had like panic attacks and PTSD, which is a regular symptom of, like, if if it's the first time you are like put into an ER, like you most likely going to suffer from PTSD or something like that. Okay.
Yeah.
And when I got out, I like had anxiety attacks, panic attacks, and like depression. And my psychiatrist put me on selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors to get me out of that. And the medicines did their part, but what I believe got me out of that was up until that point, my like formula for success in life was stress equals success. And I would like, the more you grind, the more you would get what you want, and that is true to some extent. But it sometimes will, it doesn't work when you're trying to deal with unsolvable problems, because the more you stress over it, the more you get entangled in it. So especially problems like PTSD and anxiety attacks, the more you try to solve these things, the more you go down the rabbit hole. So when it comes to problems like that, which are which it's a thinking problem, and you cannot think your way out of thinking. It's like, if you have a broken leg, the solution can't be to run a marathon. You have to pull back, you have to take rest. So in that same way, instead of me trying to find, desperately trying to find a solution for overcoming panic attacks, I decided, let's go head on into it. And I got inspiration from a book called The Clarity by Jamie Smart. So I read that, and it seemed like the fact that I'm trying to overcome this is exacerbating my initial condition. So instead of trying to avoid a panic attack and be fearful of it, let's go for it.
Yeah.
So that's the shift in mentality that helped me. It is essentially that. So when you're trying to deal with unsolvable problems, like any kind of mental issues that that is increasing because of your effort, like you're desperately trying to fix that creates like it makes the problem worse, basically. So you need to stop doing that so that your body can naturally recover from that. Your body, just like if you have a broken bone, it would recover naturally to some extent, as long as you don't keep breaking it again and again. In that same way, your mind would also bounce back from PTSD or depression, situational depressions, etc., as long as you don't keep breaking it again and again. So all you need to do is this is not applicable for every situation in all mental issues, but for the thing that I was going through, and the thing most people have, situational depression and panic attacks and all of that. So this is a useful strategy to getting out of things like that.
Yeah, that's what I always tell like people on my show. Like, you have to accept that you are going through a hard time, that you are having a rough day, you're having a raw day. And once you accept it, then you start looking ways how to deal with it. But if you don't accept it, and if you don't acknowledge that you're going through dark times, then I think it will be hard to deal with them. So one of the things I have learned, what you're telling us today, is that you had to accept that this is a bad time, and then find ways how you're going to deal with that time.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah. So one key thing, if I could give myself an advice to my, like, 3 years ago, was not all problems need to be solved. We're taught to solve each and every problem, especially in school. Like, all the problems that we have in a question paper, we need to give an answer for that. That's not true in real life. In real life, there are problems you need to avoid, because if you fixate on that, you're going to waste your time, energy, money on a problem that you shouldn't work on. Like, trying to like mentally overcome, to think your way out of overthinking is definitely not recommended. Like, the best strategy is to just submit, to give up trying to solve that particular issue. And what is the worst case scenario that could happen? If, like, I have, like, like a back pain now, like a disc herniation or disc bulge, actually. And so I can try to endlessly go on solving that thing, thinking about it, how do I overcome this, until I get a solution. There's no point overthinking about it. So if this is what I have, then so be it. I'll be a person with a disc bulge that is going to do X, Y, Z, rather than wishing to be somebody without this problem. Now, of course, if there is a solution, go for it. Use your common sense a little bit. So if the solution is not in sight, for some reason, move on to some other problem that you can solve.
Yeah, definitely.
That's the yeah.
Because even
So,
me, in my recent episode, I was telling, like, our listeners that if you're facing some rough time, or you're having any problem and you think you can solve it, or maybe you want to change something about your life that you don't like, you try to change it. But if the problem or the thing or whatever you're going through, it is out of your reach, out of your control, then you have to let it be. And, like, just make, like what you said, you don't have to solve every problem.
Yeah. And one thing, like in engineering, there is a saying, if the design is long, it's probably wrong. So something like that, you can apply that to, like, real life as well, where if the problem is too persistent, and if it's too long, if it takes a long time to solve, you're probably working on the wrong problem. Just like, dump the whole problem, move on to something that you can solve actually. Otherwise, you're just going down that hole. So, like, the key thing is to not fixate. Don't get trapped into a problem that is going to take your entire life.
Yeah, that's true. Like, I know people out there, maybe they are dealing with like maybe stress or depression, maybe just from the relationships, maybe looking for a position which they are not getting. So if maybe it's a relationship that you're trying to solve for a long time and it is not working out, maybe let it go. Just break up. Let your partner go. Let your girlfriend go. If you've been trying to look for a position and you're stressed about it, maybe change the position. Try to find something new to do.
Yeah.
Because the more you keep thinking about it, the more you keep thinking about it, the more you keep wanting something that you know you cannot get. It's like, I always try to rate it like, maybe you have maybe an iPhone 7, and now there is like maybe like iPhone 12, and you want it, but you know you cannot get it. So you think too much about it, like thinking too much about what you have, or maybe thinking too much about what you don't have, instead of looking at the little things that you have right now at that moment. So it brings like stress and depression, because you're thinking, why I want to get that thing, I want to get that thing, but you already have an iPhone. Just be thankful for that and be persistent with that. Maybe an iPhone 12 will come. And I'm using an iPhone 12, but you can relate it with a normal life. Maybe a new position will come, maybe a new partner will come who will not stress you and do all that. And so another amazing thing that I read about your story is how you moved on, like from that dark place, and then you also went on like to become a founder and a CEO. So I would like you to share with us about that story, like how you were able to have the courage, move on and like start afresh and even become a CEO on your own.
Yeah. I'm actually the founder of Impact Media and the PR director of the firm. So what we do is, we get people like PR, public relations, and get people media attention and things like that. Do publicity stunts, etc. So I was a teacher before this. I was teaching computer-aided design for both mechanical and architectural students, and that was for a while I had my own business in that, like a training institution for that. So I was basically coaching people in a software, in a few softwares, and that was a brick and mortar business, and I wanted to. It was very difficult for me to scale it up without much capital. I was like capital tight at that time, and I wanted to get into online business because this was like two years ago, where people were like getting into drop shipping and things like that. So I wanted to run an online business as opposed to a brick and mortar business because it's much easier to scale it up. And so I initially got into coaching for like mental health, to life coaching basically. But that is a tough job. to be honest,
Yeah,
that's
it's
what
tough.
inspired me to write blogs, and then get myself onto Thrive Global so that I could share my story, because tackling each one is very difficult. So if I could make my story available to people and they could just read it or watch it, so I think that would be better than me trying to handle each one, each case individually, because it takes a lot of time. It's impossible to scale up that way. So when I got a chance to get my story on Thrive Global, that's how I basically got into PR. So one thing led to another, and then I figured maybe I should focus solely on a proper business rather than be a coach. So I shifted from that and started with press releases initially, and then press coverage and all of those things. So right now, I've worked with a few celebrities like Chase Tang and Keith Mason, etc., and a bunch of lawyers as well. So things are it took me a while. It wasn't like overnight. I didn't quit my job and the next day started making money. It took me a decent 1 year to go from that to, and plus to add to the problems, we had the pandemic. The right when I started my PR firm, the lockdown hit us, and then there was no revenue for 5-6 months. So it was like hell initially. So yeah, it wasn't easy, but if you keep putting in the work, it doesn't matter if you're confident or not, if you have optimism or not, if you have hope or not. um, Certain actions have rewards in the world irrespective of who is doing it.
Yeah.
So if you put in the work, you will get the results. It's like a law. You don't have to be somebody to get the results. If you put the right actions in, you would get that. And in a lot of things, it's a numbers game. You can be a lot talented, a lot skilled. You can have all the ability and capacity, but if you don't put in the work, if you don't be consistent with and don't be persistent, uh, it's not going to work, because nothing is a one-day war. It's a prolonged war, and if you don't keep so you can win the war at a slow pace if you be consistent. The intensity doesn't matter. That's what I'm saying. The length or the duration or the endurance matters more than the intensity of it. So if it takes somebody, let's say, 1 year to achieve something, you could do that in 2 years. But if you put a lot of intensity of work but for a very short period of time, you won't get anything out of it, no matter how hard you work. The duration also matters. The length of your effort matters a lot more than. That's what I've learned so far. If I had to tell myself something 2 years ago, this is what I would say.
Yeah.
Focus more on consistent effort than on the intensity of effort. So it's okay, don't beat yourself down if you can't work 10 hours or 16 hours a day, which is what my goals used to
Yeah.
be. So I work consistently a little bit each day. That's how I built up. I started doing planking. I started with 30 seconds planking, and then I gradually pushed it up in 10 months I was doing 10 minutes of planking. So if I had started with like 2 minutes of planking first and try to push myself in an aggressive way in the initial
Mhm.
month, I would have never gotten to that, because uh, the slow growth adds up over time.
Yeah. And most people, they always want to start with like a high growth, like on
Yeah,
a higher, yeah, on a higher number, which is, and most times it doesn't work out. And when it doesn't work out, then they get issues with that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And people give up. I had that. I'm guilty of that. Like I jump a lot of niches. I've probably changed a lot of professions in my life just because of
Uh-huh.
this
Yeah.
reason. I would jump a lot from here to there, thinking that the grass is greener on the other side. But if you just stick with one thing, you would get it. And in
Mm.
fact, in PR, I almost gave up. It's like I told you, like after I started my PR firm, the
Yeah.
pandemic hit, and I didn't get anything for like 5 6 months. And
Mm.
after like 4 months, I did quit. And then Chase Sang, he's an actor,
Mm.
Hollywood actor actually, and he has his upcoming TV series called Jupiter's Legacy. I think
Mm.
it's already released. So I contacted him, I think in June or July, and then I quit after that. And then
Mm.
2 months later, he emails me out of nowhere. And then
Mm.
I happened to check that email. I don't have a habit of checking email. Indians don't really check their emails much, but I
Mm.
like accidentally checked that out, and I like, okay, this guy, I know him. And I know we talked, we did a Zoom call, and then we signed a contract for like $900 at that time for three
Mm.
articles, and then things took off from there on after that. But yeah, like if you stick with something long enough, you don't know where the next opportunity or your break is going to come from. In the real world, things are not very it's not like clockwork. It's a lot is messy, it's very dynamic, it's very
Mm.
chaotic. So you might think this is going to work, but something else does over time.
Yeah, and even me, like when I was still starting, like because I have like a YouTube channel, I have a podcast. There are many times when I have tried to give up. Like you will be thinking, like, okay, if I start a YouTube channel, maybe in 1 month, maybe I'll have like 1 million views or 10K views. And when you make a video and spend like 2 months and you only have like 16 views, you will feel like you want to give up. There are many times I tried to give up. Even when I started making the podcast, I think maybe on the maybe third episode, I wanted to give up. I was like, maybe this thing is not for me. But then I also learned that nothing works out in 1 day. Like I always tell my friends like this, like imagine you wake up one morning and every dream you have ever had, it is around you, the money, maybe the wealth and everything. I still think life would be boring. So I like it in this way where one thing happens at a time, not everything happening at once. And that's what I'm trying to accept myself or even learn. And in this past week, the struggles that I've been having were like, maybe I know the future will be great and there is a lot in store for me. But then I was wondering, like, why is it not happening right now when I need it? When I feel like my life is boring, everything's boring. Why doesn't my dream maybe come true right now? And I was stressed about it. So most people they get stressed about that, but what you have said that you have to let things grow step by step, time by time. So today now this will be our 14th episode. And yesterday I got an email from the Amazon Music. You know Amazon Music? Hello?
Yeah, I'm listening.
Yeah, you know Amazon Music?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so they are like they sent me an email and they said like we are inviting you to put your podcast on our platform. And I was like, I felt like hyped and I like with some positive energy because I never thought about it. Maybe even a day like Amazon Music would invite my podcast. And if maybe I gave up on the 13th episode, maybe I wouldn't even have reached here where I am. And that's the same as life. You have to start accepting sometimes what life brings to you. And sometimes when I say about that, I don't mean like people like have to accept the bad things that happen in their life, but what happens in life, accept it. If you can't change it, and if you can change it, try to change it. But if it is out of your control, then let it be. Another thing I read into your article was like how I would like you to tell our listeners today, like this thing of taking a break. Like you say, okay, let me take a break and then come back when I'm stronger. We talked about it last time, so I would like even our listeners to know like how it works. Like, what does it mean to take a break? Because if you told me like take a break, I would feel like maybe if I take a break, I will be left behind, maybe by my friends, by a lot
Yeah.
of people, by maybe life will leave me behind. So how did you work with that? Because I think you told me last time that you took a break.
Yeah. So usually when I tell people this, you need to stop working on solving that problem. We are obviously in a like condition to not like, there's a like in society in mainstream, like if you give up, that's not a good thing. Don't give up. Be persistent. There is a time and a place for persistence, but it's not on problems that you cannot fix, uh, at all.
Mm,
So I did take a break from things for like 3 months. I was like, my life's goal was nothing. I
mm,
decided, like, screw it. I don't want to be successful or anything like that because this was too much to handle at the same time, like the PTSD and the career and everything. So I
mm,
decided if I end up being like a normal person, like 9 to 5, and then, a
mm,
boring life, okay, that's fine. I'm okay with it. Once you reach that mentality,
mm,
uh, you're not chasing success because you have to. You're chasing success because you have the privilege to. You can. That's
mm.
why it goes from you have to do this, you have to be successful, to you want to do it. And that is a stressless way of working. It doesn't mean that I stopped chasing my goals or anything. The
Mm,
reason why I chased things changed. I don't have to run a PR agency. I don't have to, do all of the work. I'm just doing it because I have free time. I'm doing it. That's all. It's not like a mandatory thing. I am okay living a lesser life,
mm,
but since I have like a fully functioning body, or somewhat of a fully functioning body,
mm.
let's put it to use.
Yeah.
That's the approach of of doing things, rather than I have to do this, otherwise I have no meaning and I won't be happy. My happiness is not based on whether I do this or not. I'm like anyway okay. So that's one thing. So the way in like which I convince myself to go through this, because I've like everybody else, I was also taught that you should not give up on solving problems, because if you do, then it's like you're a nobody then. So I bit the bullet. I said, let's go against the grain, let's go against the like social norm, and let's see what's in this direction. Once you take a break out of that,
Mm,
you tend to realize that success was my is a choice. It's not something, it's not a condition upon your life.
yeah.
And that difference is very important, because in the last podcast, we I told you about, in a company, the most pressure is on a CEO, is
Mm,
on the owner of the company. The least pressure is on the employees. They don't lose anything if the company goes bankrupt. But like, I don't know which study it was, but if you look at the cortisol levels, the stress levels, the
mm,
employees are under a lot more stress than the owners of the company. Because you know as an owner, you can decide when you want to work and when
mm,
you want to take a vacation. It's under your control. So if you're working 16 hours a day, it's not because somebody else told you, it's because you're doing it.
mm.
But as an employee, you don't have the privilege to take a break whenever you want. So that kind of creates a lock-in situation. It's like a prison at that point. In a prison, you get food on time, you get everything on time. It's like a perfect life, but
Yeah.
it's forced upon you, and that's why it makes people miserable. People suffer, even though that's the ideal life. Essentially, you get everything on time, everything is very organized, but there's a lot of suffering in that.
Yeah. There is a lot of suffering.
So yeah, so if it's not your choice, if you're kind of locked in, you would suffer your own decisions. So always realize that chasing this goal was your choice. It's not forced upon you. Keeping that in mind is very essential. Otherwise, you start, if you have to live with someone, if you have to do a job, if you have to live, it's all miserable. If you want to live with someone, great. If you want to do a job, that's called passion. If you want to live, you say, we have passion for life. So that's the subtle difference. When I say giving up, it doesn't mean giving up the goal. It means giving up the reason why you're chasing it. You don't have to, but in order to realize that at the core, you have to give up on that. Because if you don't have true freedom, if you don't have the freedom to quit your job or quit your goals, then you're not controlling your goals. Your goals are controlling you.
Yeah. So another thing I would like you to share with us is when you are into that dark moment, what kept you going on? Because in my last episode also, I was telling to our listeners, in life, sometimes if you're thinking about giving up, find a reason, find something that will keep you moving. Maybe something you can wake up every day and say, I am alive today, or I'm not taking my life. If you're having suicidal thoughts, that one reason that keeps you moving. And for me, why I stopped thinking about taking my life and all that stuff was I figured out that maybe right now my life is not so good like I wish, or I thought maybe it would be. But what keeps me going on, or what keeps me waking up every day is knowing that maybe tomorrow, or maybe next month, next year, or maybe another year, everything can turn around and change. So for you, so what kept you going? What's that one reason that kept you moving on and up to now where you are right now?
Yeah, I have from a very young age actually, um, like felt like you know if you give up, you what will happen. It's very given. It's that that's the end of your life. But if you keep going, what will happen is a big unknown. Okay, and everybody is guaranteed death. There's nobody who can escape that. So since you have two options, either you can die or you can live. Death is already guaranteed. So after you live, you're going to see, experience that phase also. So if you had two dishes to try, and if you try this, you can't try this. But if you try this, you'll get to try this later on. So I never could understand why would I choose this and skip on this one. Let's go for this, and at the end, you're gonna get you're gonna die at some point. So you're gonna experience both. So it didn't make sense. You don't need to choose this. It's already there. After you live, you die. It's given. You can have both of it, or you can have one of it. So I wanted both of it. It's just a logical thing.
Yeah. Even me, I'm trying to understand. It's a logical thing. So death is already programmed. It's there. So why would you bring it yourself? First, live your life, and you will die later eventually.
Yeah, I would think that I'm gonna die, so rush.
Yeah, I'm thinking about right now, and so that's what I was trying to say. If you're having suicidal thoughts, you try. Dying is already there. Death is already there. We can't escape it. So why don't you try and change your life around, turn your life around, do things that make you happy, stop forcing yourself on things, stop caring about what the society wants, because most times I think we are affected by the society, because we are in this society, I have to look maybe beautiful, I have to be handsome, I have to have a meaning, I have to have a purpose, I have to be doing something. And sometimes 1 hour ago, I was talking to one of my friends. He started a podcast, and he also had a TikTok account. And then he left the account and deactivated everything, just because the people, the society, they were judging her. It was judging her, why are you doing this kind of content? Why are you talking like this? Even me, when I started my podcast, people were saying why are you talking about suicidal thoughts? Why don't you talk about how to make money? Why don't you talk about comedy? But I was like, that's comedy, and how can I even talk about how to make money when I'm still poor, when I'm still a student like me? So sometimes you have to do things that make you happy, and like try to live life in an amazing way, because you know you're gonna die someday. So you make the most out of it. And sometimes it's hard, but then also acknowledging that there will be bad days and good days is something that is helping me, because I'm learning, if a bad day comes, how do I deal with it? And if I'm having a good day still, how do I deal with that one also? And sometimes it is a problem. People expect that life will be amazing every day I wake up when everything is okay, everything's okay. So what will you do if you wake up tomorrow and it is not okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I read your story, and even today after, I will provide the link to our listeners in the episode description. They will read your story, because I was inspired and I was so touched, like how we were able to move. It's like moving mountains, like being poisoned, then you come out, you become a CEO, you become your own. Even the many things you had to do before you become successful. And also, most of us will think, okay, if I start a YouTube channel, maybe I'll be successful. If I get this job position, maybe I'll be successful. But in your story, you talk about like how you did many things, different things, until you became successful. So I don't know if you have any last words, or some advice that you can share with us today. Maybe people who are listening to this podcast right now, and they are suffering, they are battling the mental issues, anything that you would like to leave with them.
Yeah. When you look, there has to be something that 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 helps you get up in the morning. Don't try to just live your life because you have to. You don't have to do all of this. If you haven't found something, that I'm not talking about passion here. I'm talking
Yeah.
about, like, reason to get up in the morning. It could be, about airplanes. It could be about technology. It could be about something else. So I was, like, from a very young age interested in science and technology, and I want to know what happens tomorrow. Even if I am unable to contribute into that industry, into that world, I still want to know where this goes. And I'm like, I care about that. So, even if, like, um, I don't achieve, like, all my goals, like, I still want to live because I want to see where this goes. Because there is something that gets me up in the morning and wants to live, makes me want to live for. It could be your family, it could be your children, it could be some thing that you really like. Uh, so try to, and when you're depressed, you probably wouldn't be able to answer this question. Like, what's the reason to get up in the morning? You would say nothing.
Yeah.
But there are things. It's just, it's under your radar. Um, like, what do you watch on YouTube the most? What do you keep browsing on? I'm not talking about, like, entertaining videos. What do you do other than that? So just go through your browsing history, see what things piqued your curiosity, and you will understand that you have something, you feel something for that particular thing. For me, it's like technology, and things like that. So I automatically do this. If you really like something, you think about it even when you don't have to.
Yeah.
Uh, so what do you think about when you don't have to think about it? Try to find that, and then that's what you like. And you might not be able to make a career around it. Like, I'm in the PR industry, but even though I like technology, but that's my reason to live. Even though I'm not participating in technology right now directly in any way, except for a little bit of programming, I still, that's what I want with life. That's the reason to be born. That's the reason to keep going, because I want to see what do they do next.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a great advice. And like, I just like try to tell myself, and to tell people who are listening today, many people die every day, even today people are dying, even tomorrow people will die. So if you're still alive and you're still breathing, then you have to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you have any other remarks, because I think we are going to stop the podcast. And I would like to thank you for being able to, this week you have been my guest, and maybe I'll look forward to hosting you as we explore and share
Sure.
more about our mental issues.
I'll be happy to. Yeah.
Yeah, so all those people who are listening today, thank you for tuning in. The podcast is Regardless, and today on the show we had Jeetujayson Raju from India, and was sharing us with what's going on. And just like you know about this show, regardless of everything you're going through right now, you have to live. So thank
Yeah.
you for listening in today. Peace out.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah,
Have a great day.
yeah, you too.